Over the past 2 weeks, the #1 most frequently asked question in both the YouTube comments and the Twitch live streams has been, how are your leaderboard points so high, and how can you help me better understand how to push points in my brackets so that I can promo into higher tiers and eventually earn more cosmetics as we make our way up to the top 100. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to make it up to that rank, nor does everyone care about things like that. A lot of people actually just care about the weekly epic rewards down below my face cam here for each of the 5 trials each week that can reward things like blueprints and other valuables that can really help push your count along. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. This video is going to act as the ultimate trials guide to Arc Raiders, and as you can see here, I am currently in Wildcard 3, which is the highest possible rank that you can achieve in the game at the time of this recording, which means we're matching some of the best players that this game has to offer, at least in terms of trials. They've been putting effort into double promo every single time. Now, this isn't to gloat or anything like that, I'm just stating that I have a pretty good understanding of how these trials works, and I'm going to be sharing my methodologies with you guys so that you too can understand which maps are the best, how enemy spawns work, what modifiers you should be using on different trials each week to really push your points, and different strategies that we're using with both positioning and items that we're bringing into raid to really max things out. So as you can see here, the leaderboards just reset. I haven't pushed any of my trials this week just yet, but I'll be talking through kind of what my thought process is going into these. But before we do that, we're going to talk about 3 very high-level rules. The first of which is going to be which map modifiers you need to be using to push your points. So first things first, anything with a 2x multiplier is going to be your best friend for trials. As you can see here, this 2x point multiplier here for night raids, as well as electromagnetic storm and hidden bunker. This will be essential for pushing trials points for every single trial that you do. Daily rotating map modifiers like prospecting probes or lush blooms simply are never worth it. Yes, they add additional spawns to the map for things like harvesting or prospecting probes, but there are so many extra spawns on the map that you're just never going to have time to loot all of them, and you would quite literally need to farm double the amount of spawns in both of these to simply make up for what you would get during either a night raid or electromagnetic storm with the 2x multiplier. This gives you far more leniency when doing these trials. You still need to be very aggressive about pushing all of the spawns and typical areas that you guys know that things are happening on the map, whether it's an enemy spawn or where probes typically show up or where you harvest materials, but you have far more leniency because of the double point multiplier. Next, trial running is very, very expensive. As you can see, I am relatively broke by endgame standards. To some of you, this is probably still a decent amount of money, but most of my kits look something like this, and I'll actually move my face cam out of the way so that you guys can see here. Typically, for these larger enemies, like one of the trials this week is Rocketeers, as well as damaging large ground-based enemies, I bring in a ton of wolf packs, things like deadline mines, lure grenades, blaze grenades, multiple stacks of stims to cross the map quickly, a heavy weapon to deal with the basic arc enemies like wasps and hornets and things like that. And basically, you have to understand that you're risking a significant loadout anytime you do a trial that requires killing high-tier enemies or damaging something to a certain extent, right? So you never want to go in and half-ass a trial. You always want to full send it. All right, the last core principle that you guys need to understand about trials is that spawns are very predictable in Arc Raiders. In one of our recent runs, last week there was actually a trial for Leapers, and I know that on Dam Battlegrounds there are 4 main spawn points in which they can spawn. One is the water treatment control extract. There's one that typically wanders around here. There's one that will typically wander in front of hydroponic near the breach/pipeline tower, kind of in this area of the swamp. And then there's one that kind of wanders around this U shape of the Blood Lake, and then down here in front of Testing Annex. So there are 4 potential spawns, and so we know that if we're able to get to those spawns quickly, when you kill a major enemy in Arc Raiders, it starts a fixed timer that will then work towards spawning the next version of that same enemy. So, in the run that we're showing in the background, we actually spawn in primary facility, and I immediately run over to water treatment, and I insta-kill the first leaper. And what this does is it instantly starts the timer towards the next one spawning in. So the earlier into the raid that I do this, the faster the next one will spawn. And if you do this early enough, you can actually get up to 3 spawns of any given enemy, a major enemy for that matter, during a given raid. So while I did this, my 2 teammates went down to Testing Annex, and they went down to the Red Lake, and they farmed the 2 leapers that spawn in this area. And what did we do? We essentially killed those leapers and then waited for them to respawn and insta-killed them each time they showed up. And how did we do that? We used high-tier loadouts like wolf packs or lure grenades with blaze grenades. Essentially, the first one is by far the most important. You want to start that initial spawn timer as quickly as you possibly can. So using things like adrenaline shot stims to get you to different locations as quickly as you can, and just full sending it at those spawns, and then using high caliber offensive firepower to take it out as fast as you can, will start that timer and will maximize your score. And it's not the most glamorous or entertaining type of raid in the world. Things like when you're damaging these big enemies and focusing on different spawns, you're going to do a lot of waiting around. Basically, I killed this one in water treatment. I go and check the hydroponic dome in the 8 to 10 minute downtime, didn't spawn up. So I literally spent the rest of the raid kind of just hiding out, waiting for the next leaper to spawn in, and I killed it on cooldown while my teammates did the same across the map. So we spread out, we played safe, kind of like lurking in the shadows until the next one spawned, took it out quickly to minimize noise and the attention that gets drawn to you, which is why you bring in those high tier explosives and firepower, and then you wait for the next one. It's pretty boring, but it's a really efficient way to do anything like leapers from last week, or if you're looking to do something like Rocketeers this week, or even the ground-based enemies this week as well. I will likely be doing this on Damn Battlegrounds again. And why is that? Well, when you look at Damn Battlegrounds and you actually zoom in on the map, there's the 4 leaper spawns that we discussed before: water treatment, breach, Red Lake, and then Testing Annex. But you also have a spawn of a bombardier in the primary facility in front of the control tower. You have a bastion down in hydroponic, and you have a another bastion over by the pipeline tower. Now, you obviously have some Rocketeers that wander around as well, but for the ground-based one, I think this map is fantastic. So basically, we're going to split up in the same way. You're going to have one person bounce between the leaper and the bombardier. You're going to have one person bounce between the 2 leapers, and you're going to have one person bounce between the 2 bastions. And this is obviously going to take a ton of firepower, so plan accordingly. But if you're in a team, you're going to need to split, and you're going to need to spawn camp these enemies as much as possible, because other players who are also pushing leaderboards will be going in on the same map conditions as you, so you need to be extremely aggressive about trying to kill these. You cannot half-ass these trials. You really need to go for it. So that will apply to any future trial like damaging Rocketeers or Bastions or Leapers or anything like that in the future. Understanding how those spawn systems work will help you immensely. Next, we have the Hidden Bunker. This one's pretty straightforward. This is only available during Hidden Bunker on Spaceport, obviously. This is only available at 2 a.m. Pacific time, which is when I'm recording this video, just before, for 1 hour a day right now. For whatever reason, it's not showing up as frequently as it did the original week that it was out, and I hope Embark fixes that, because it's 2 a.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern for the US audience, which is just unplayable for most people. They've got jobs and things that they need to do. Luckily, I do this as a job full time, so I'm able to do this, but I really hope they up the accessibility of this, because the availability of this modifier is so limited that people who can be on late just have a pure advantage. So hopefully they fix that. Regardless, you're going to activate the 4 satellites on the map, and then you're going to go over to the Hidden Bunker, and what you're going to do is you're going to head downstairs, and there will be the hidden bunker with 8 interactable computers that you can turn on. You need to activate and start the download and stay next to the computer the entire time. Otherwise, it will stop the download, and there is a 5-minute lockout until your next chance for when that computer comes back online, which then obviously increases your exposure to other players griefing you while you're down there. But you can hit all 8 interfaces for a total of 6,400 points, and that will max out your score for that one. Next up, we have Search First Wave Husks, and this one is interesting because it's also going to likely be between either Spaceport and Damn Battlegrounds during Electromagnetic Storm, and there's actually an awesome tool that you guys can use by the name of Metaforge. I'm sure many of you guys have heard of it, that will actually help you isolate where a lot of these specific trial interactables will spawn. So, for example, when I go over to this other screen here, this is Spaceport, and this is showing all 31 spawns of where Baron Husks could potentially actually spawn in. And if I zoom out, this is where all of the Damn Battlegrounds spawns are. I think there are slightly less, but as you can see, Damn Battlegrounds has a bunch clustered in the swamp area down by Hydroponic. So it's kind of like a risk versus reward. You could either stay in Spaceport longer and search a larger area of the map, or you could go into Damn Battlegrounds and kind of hit these clusters more efficiently and get out with a really good score if you guys aren't concerned with pushing like crazy high scores, but you want enough to promote. Damn Battlegrounds is probably the place to do it, with Spaceport being the area that will likely get you the most overall points if you're really looking to push for first. All right, next up we have Damage Snitches, and this one I haven't actually done before, so I'm kind of theory crafting this one in my head as we go. Again, I think it's going to either be Spaceport during Hidden Bunker, because you have that 2x multiplier with a 40-minute raid. You simply have so much time to find a bunch of snitches in the area. Or Blue Gate is another shout, I think. Going up to Pilgrim's Peak and kind of looking down over the map, there are a ton of snitches that roam around this area, and you can aggro them from a crazy long distance away. So I think that this could also be a shout where you can potentially snipe at them with something like an Osprey or a Renegade from like hundreds of meters away, pull them towards you, and kill them for bonus score. So those are 2 maps that I'm going to be looking at for that trial specifically. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the ground-based enemies, that's going to be done on Damn Battlegrounds, cycling between different spawn points with my team split between the Leaper 4 spawns, the Bombardier, and the 2 Bastions. All right. Other popular ones, Harvesting. This is a very interesting one because there's actually a map that's kind of unexpectedly good for this, and is unexpected with very minimal effort. This is a more PvP-centric map, so basically you need to be a lot more careful about where you're running your trials, and obviously, like, as you maneuver through Buried City, you can obviously run into a lot more people that are strictly going there for PvP. But as you can see here, when we go over to the Metaforge website yet again, there are actually a ton of spawns, specifically in the Galleria, as you move over in towards the hospital. There's so many different areas you can go to. The parking garage has a spawn. There's spawns by Murano Park. There's a spawn in front of the Grandiose Apartments, and then there's agave spawns kind of around the border of the map as well that I believe will give you an easy 25k, which is pretty crazy, because a lot of times when people are going to Buried City, they're not, especially night raids, they're not contesting you for harvesting plants. So as long as you can do it safely, you pretty much guarantee yourself a safe score. Where we ended up going is the Spaceport was a really good spot, going down in the trench and looting the Mullen all the way along here. And then there's Mullen in the departure building. There's Mullen underneath these pipes in the middle near the launch towers. And this will probably secure you around 30k. Where you get the most, if you're really trying to min-max, will be Damn Battlegrounds because of Hydroponic, pretty much specifically. There are Mullen spawns by these riverbeds over by the Pattern House. There's Mullen spawns over by the Ruby Residence and the Pale Apartments down these riverbeds. There's Mullen spawns all throughout the swamp here, as well as moss, which counts as an interactable, and things like that, as well as mushrooms, which you find a ton of in this part of the map. You also find mushrooms and moss over by the wreckage and the scrapyard. There's Mullen spawns out on the island in Red Lake, and throughout all of the hydroponic domes as well, on those like canisters that you can grab moss and mushrooms off of. Look inside of the domes. There are so many things you can interact with that will give you harvesting points. I believe we hit 47,000 on harvesting last week, which was definitely on the upper end of the community as far as I'm aware. So if you're really looking to push harvesting, this is the place to go. Next, pops and fireballs and things of that nature. I actually went to Buried City for this. Normally, I recommend going either Spaceport or Dam Battlegrounds for every single one of my trials, because Blue Gate, Stellamontis, and Buried City are usually very PvP heavy, so it's hard to do trials in these areas. But for harvesting, Buried City is great, and Buried City is also fantastic in solo play for fireballs and pops, because this is an individual modifier even when you're in a team. So where do I go during my solo raids? So number one, there are several that roam around in the Galleria. There's several in space travel as well as research. There's a bunch in the parking garage. There's a bunch in the library, the hospital, like the bottom part of the hospital when you're going up the stairs is usually a fireball and multiple pops. There's even fireballs in the market ruins, and there's fireballs down in the extracts as well as multiple pops. So instead of fanning out and doing the entire map, trying to just like search every single building, risking running into a billion players, isolate this portion of the map here near the hospital and do a loop. So focus on where you start first, kill them, go next. So like say for example, I spawn Galleria, I'm going to clear out Galleria, go to the market ruins, go underneath, clear out the extract, go up into hospital, clear out hospital, go into the library, clear out the library, then parking garage, research, space travel, back to Galleria, and hopefully some of them will have respawned. And you basically rinse and repeat this until the end of the raid, and you should easily be able to get around 6,000 on fireballs and pops, which is definitely one of the more difficult trials because it is always solo based, and this isn't a super common enemy because they only spawn indoors, so it can be much harder to get this one to a higher score threshold. With all of that said, the only other major one that I can think of at the moment would be flying enemies, which we talked a little bit about at the beginning, as well as prospecting probes. Prospecting probes will be on Spaceport during Electromagnetic Storm. There are so many probes that you can go and find. It's actually insane. Like I said, I think there's 31 spawns of Baron Husks. There's even more for probes on this map. So what we're going to do is, say we spawn at security checkpoint, the first thing you want to do as a team is understand where you're spawning and where your final extract is. So in this example that we're going to use, let's say that the east elevator is the final extract on the map. So what we're going to do is, instead of heading towards the east elevator off of spawn, we're actually going to go the opposite direction, because you're going to be coming over this direction anyway at the end of the raid, right? And you have a ton of ground to cover. Now with probes specifically on Spaceport, you're going to either want to bring a snap hook or multiple zip lines to be able to get on the roofs of the buildings like fuel station, fuel processing, Jiangsu warehouse, things like that, as well as departure, the arrival building. Like, getting up into these high ground areas quickly is going to save you so much time, because you only have 30 minutes to search a massive surface area for probes. And the longer the raid goes, the more difficult prospecting probes becomes, because other teams will be hitting these probes, which means they're no longer smoking as a visual indicator. But even after a team has hit them, you can still interact with them for points. So make sure you keep that in mind, and always keep your eyes peeled, because even though there isn't smoke coming from a specific area, there could be a probe hiding there. So Let's say we spawn security checkpoint. We know our final extract is east elevator. We're going to stick together but kind of fan out over a wide area and cover this entire width by spreading out just slightly, like having one person on the outer edge, one in the middle, and one kind of going more closely to the wall. What this does is it keeps you close enough to your teammates that you can help them if another team approaches them or comes across you to try and grief you while you're doing your trial. While also spreading out enough that you can cover a huge surface area pretty quickly. So we're going to make our way over. The person with like the snap hook or the zip lines is going to be going through fuel storage, looking for smoke on rooftops, while your two teammates are kind of searching in the fields, and you're going to continue to do this all the way over to Jiangsu warehouse until you've done a pretty good skim of the outside of the map. Then you're going to end up at shipping warehouse. You're going to want to get up on the rooftop and overlook in between the launch tower's departure and arrival building. There's usually a ton of spawns here. You can kind of look over the trench and start to see spawns up on the concrete overlooking the trench on the far side, on the close side, sometimes on this ramp, down by these little ponds, down in the trench. There's usually like 6 to 10 probes in this area that you can easily search and have one person do it, because it's a more secluded area of the map, so usually you can have one person do this pretty safely, while your other two search arrival. They search the top of departure building, which usually has at least a couple spawns on top of it, and then kind of in this area that's very dangerous. You want to have your teammates overlooking for you while you go for these probes. Next, you're going to shift over into like fuel control, rocket assembly, control tower area. There's always a ton in this central area of the map, and as the timer winds down, we're going to end back up near the East Plains warehouse, the communication tower, service building, and head to our final extract. I believe we got 47,000 points on probes last week, or 44,000, something like that. It was a really solid score, but it definitely requires you playing pretty risky to accomplish something like that, where you're all kind of spreading out while staying together and using probably legitimately 20 adrenaline shots to get across the map as quickly as possible, because you have an absurd surface area to cover. All right, the final trial that we're going to be covering, as this is getting into a longer video at 25 minutes. Thank you for those of you who are still watching. Snitch scanners and the flying trial will always be done during hidden bunker, which is unfortunate because it's available one time each day, 2 a.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern. We like to set up on the North Trench Tower. It's relatively secluded from the rest of the map while still giving you a good sight line on everything in front of launch towers, everything in front of fuel control, and you can kind of set up a zip line to get up to the rooftop, set up mines to defend yourself. You can set up barricades and things of that nature, and you have a pretty big surface area with like the center core of the building blocking players from shooting at you, and you can throw the snitch scanners on either side of that as like a nice little surface area to hunt like hornets and wasps from. I recommend bringing 1, if not 2 guns. Like a Renegade is fantastic for this. It's fast firing, it has good range, and as long as you're aiming for the thrusters, like it's going to take out the basic arc enemies pretty quickly. I also recommend bringing in something like a hole cracker to deal with the more heavily shielded targets, like either hornets or the Rocketeers if you run out of wolf packs to bring in. Each of you are going to want to bring in a ton of heals, a ton of wolf packs, and probably 20 to 30 snitch scanners each, which sounds absurd, but we pretty much just farm these up throughout the week, and then we go balls to the wall in a single raid. If we get a bad spawn, we basically reset. So like if we spawn over by security checkpoint or like fuel storage all the way across the map from where we want to be, we pretty much just very carefully and safely make our way to an extract and leave and basically reset until we get a fresh raid timer that's not in progress. So we have the full 40 minutes and we spawn at least somewhere on this side of the map so we can get there quickly and utilize the full time to our advantage. I know the snitch scanner strategy is super cringe, but until they fix it, if you guys are pushing high scores, that's what we're going to have to do. So anyways, I think the only final trial that we haven't yet talked about is like the Deliverables one. I think one of the best places to do this, surprise, surprise, again, is damn Battlegrounds. There are 6 field depots that you can take advantage of. 1 in the South Swamp Outpost, 1 in Hydroponic, 1 over on the East Broken Bridge, 1 between water treatment and primary facility, one over by the Red Lakes balcony, and there's just, I mean, and then I believe there's also one over by the water towers over here. And again, you can use Metaforge to look for the field depot spawn points so that you can find the canisters to actually deposit into the field depots to get the points that you're looking for. I believe on this, we pushed, I think it was like around 8,000 points or something like that. And that allowed us, that basically meant that we got like 2 to 3 per. But it will definitely require you guys to split up. That one is also very difficult and you probably won't be pushing crazy points on it. Yeah, I think the only other one would be the, like, either damaging the Matriarch or the Queen. Always go for the Queen. Has more total health, way less griefy attacks, less enemies spawning in, trying to just ruin your time. And the Queen, in general, is just much easier to deal with. But make sure you guys are plucking away at the legs and the armor to deal more damage to the shield health rather than the natural hull health. So deadline mines are actually a pretty bad strat if you're trying to farm damage for the Queen. I believe 16k is the maximum you can hit, and I think 7 deadline mines kill the boss. And as you can see here, it's like 1,000 damage per mine. So you'll only get 7,000 damage if you place all of them on the center hole. So you want to take your time picking away at the legs and really maximizing the total damage that you deal to the Queen to maximize your trial score. Now, without further ado, hopefully you guys found this guide useful. It's been 30 straight minutes of talking. Hopefully it was. If it was helpful in any way, shape, or form, be sure to smash the thumbs up. If you want to see us come and push trials this week when we actually start in the next couple of days, feel free to swing on by the stream at twitch.tv/above or one of our YouTube live streams. You guys can hop in there. We'll be pushing these throughout the week and hopefully promoting all the way into Daredevil 2 would be the next double promotion. So we're really starting to make our way up there. It's going to be a sweaty, fun push, but I'm looking forward to it. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching. Much love, and I'll catch you topside.